Hi, everybody. We made it. We made it. We have some technical issues, but we're here. Hi, everybody. I'm Julia, and I'm super excited to have you in another session for the Portfolio Power Up series. And if you have been following every of the talks that we've been doing, we've been having a lot of guest speakers talking from different points of view of how to create a portfolio, how to do the storytelling, and how branding is part of who we are. And we see branding in so many places, like absolutely everything have branding, and there's some brands that are so recognizable for all of us. What about if we do our brand recognizable too? So that's what we're going to keep talking. But before we move to that, let me just share my screen to let you know what are the events that are coming up. So we have this Saturday two of my coworkers. I love them, and they're going to be sharing of how to build or how to get feedback from others. And that is going to be, or is going to be really powerful to help you to build your portfolio. Ooh. Then we have Christina on Tuesday with the art of storytelling. So if you start working on the case studies, how do you show up your strengths, your skills? Then we have Hanshu, a little more of authenticity on those case studies. That's going to be on Saturday. Then if you are a product manager, you're thinking about what should I be doing on my portfolio and how should I be showing what I can do. Claudia is going to be helping us with that. And this is it. So make sure if you want to be part of all these events, you are coming into my LinkedIn and you will see them coming up. And if you miss the other ones, they will be on LinkedIn on YouTube. But before I continue, let's have our guest speaker. And I forgot to ask you about your name. How to say your name. I've been saying your name wrong, I feel like, for the last 2 weeks. But why don't we introduce people who you are?
No, actually, you haven't been saying the name wrong. There's a bit of accent difference because of the regional touches, but the pronunciation is mostly correct.
Oh,
I am
thank you. Thank
Aditya.
you. I've been doing it in Spanish. I've been doing like maybe like my Spanish accent for your name. So sorry. Yes.
Yeah, that's completely fine. I'm Aditya and I am from India. And coming to accent, even within India, there are different accents. So even people from my country pronounce it differently. So that's no big deal.
Okay, I don't feel that bad then.
Yeah, and I'm primarily a branding lead, and I started out as a graphic designer. Then I slowly moved into specializing into the branding side, and I am self-taught and multidisciplinary, which is a bit why I like branding, because it touches a lot of different aspects, including a bit of UI UX, and that's also something I worked on a bit. And I understand that most of you are from the UI UX background, so there's a little bit of commonality in our languages and the things we do, and that's something that I'll be focusing on a bit. And the other thing we'll be talking about is how to keep things easy. People usually start from somewhere, and when people start from somewhere, it's usually some kind of template, and that by itself is not wrong, but that can also make you look very similar to everyone else. And so we'll talk about a few ways that you can bring a bit of your own personality and stand out in a way so that your people scanning through your works can remember you for something. That's an important part. That's an important part of just being human as well, actually, and you're just bringing that into your work and standing out in that way as well.
And I love this because this is something that we keep talking and talking every single time. And it's hard for me to say, don't keep talking about this, because this is exactly what we need to keep repeating and learning from different folks. And I feel from the chat that we have with Jacobo, you kind of finish it up and closing up how to create this and how could look different from each of us and stand out from others. So I will leave you, but whatever you need, I'm here on the side. Okay. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. Uh, See, I think the way, firstly, when people think about branding, people somewhat think like it's something completely new, something that you need to learn from scratch. Now, of course, there's a bit of learning curve, and that does come into play in the longer term. But to enter it, it's not something very different from what you're doing. And I'll start with showing some examples of some case studies that I've worked on. Yes, so let me give you some example of the commonalities. So there are a few elements that comes into the design system part of UI UX. The very common ones, the very basic ones are the typography sets, the color palette set, the different elements that you will be repeating. And this overall is a brand guide for the SaaS company that I made. Uh, I'll show you. I'll go through the case study, the brand guide ones, and point out the similarities between UI UX design system. There's a bit of introduction and stuff. Wait, yeah. But let's start with something that comes into play in almost all UI UX research, which is the demographics. When you are working on an UI UX project, you're thinking about the users who will be using it. The terms might vary a bit depending on the segment and the industry. The terms we use in branding might be a little different. The go-to term is perfect customer, but that that's just the same thing as being the perfect user. And usually we go with 3 users. That is the common way to go, but there's no fixed number for that. But let's see, this is the demographics, and for it we had 3 users, in this case the perfect customer. And the elements are also very similar to what we do for UI UX persona, which is you have a name for the person, some kind of representation of the person in terms of imagery, and what the persona does, what the person's role is, because that will define how the person uses your application or platform, whatever the UI UX is for. And then some characteristics which play into how they use it. If I use the UI UX terminology, then there is the emotion chart, there's the need versus want, and those kind of things. The arrangement is a bit different, but they are pretty similar. And just like in most UI UX projects, there are usually 3 perfect customers, which is 3 perfect users. In this case, we have Randeep, then we have Rajit, and we have Ravi. They all have the similar characteristics that we play on. In this case, there's the persona, the role, the characteristics. Then we have yes, we have keywords for brands. This is something that directly doesn't come into play in UI UX projects, but that is something whatever the product lead or the product manager or whoever is leading the US project kind of keeps in mind, because the whole platform needs to adhere to a few keywords. You open an app and it should give you a kind of vibe. Similarly, how you look at a brand and it should give you a kind of vibe, and those vibes are oversimplified using brand keywords. In they may be a bit different for core UI UX projects, but the keywords are basically the vibe the thing is supposed to give. In branding, the brand gives the vibes, so oversimplified by keywords. In UI UX, the platform or application, whatever, gives the vibes oversimplified by the keywords. And you also see, the other thing that happens in branding is you have a little version of the logo where different parts are and how this comes into play in different scenarios. It is similar to how you have, ideally you have proper documentation behind the design system and the different components it have, what each part is supposed to do, where it is being used. So once again, that is pretty similar. So when you, in case of personal branding, you can have a logo which is pretty good to have. I have one, but consider the logo to be your face, and in to refer it to UI UX projects, compare it to some important component that you are putting everywhere. So you have a specific set of system, what it is, how it is being used, and how it will act depending on different scenarios. Coming back to the branding example, this is the primary version of the logo, And then we have how the logo, different components, different variants of the logo, like there's a horizontal one, a vertical one, just icon, a favicon. A favicon is basically directly for it to be used in the app icons and stuff. So a bit closer. This specific project is a bit closer to where UX projects because this is a SaaS company, so they are also supposed to have a application platform. So documentation for the logo, similar to how you have documentation for components, and the logo itself is ideally part of the component library you use for UI/UX because that is an important part of the whole platform. It keeps repeating in different areas of the platform. So another commonality, you have different variants of a component depending on the background in terms of color behavior, just like you have different variants of a logo to act into different backgrounds. And just like UI/UX, you have a color palette template. The anticipated documentation looks a little different, but the concept is once again very similar. You have a primary palette, you have secondary palette, which usually here the terms are being used as highlights and shadows because this branding is usually focused on the marketing side and the front facing side. But in if I were to turn it into UI/UX terminology, then the highlights and shadows would be accents, neutrals, semantics, and terms like that. But the concept once again is similar, maintaining a commonality, a uniform look across your platform. Similarly, how you should maintain a uniform and commonality look across your personal branding, across your brand in your personal branding is very similar to a brand, just with a bit of extra human touch. Yeah, this is a bit closer to AVX terminology because you have CTS in UIUX, you have backgrounds, you have highlights, you have one second backgrounds and main colors. Uh, Typography is once again an important part of UIUX. You have specific guidelines for how headings look, how H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, basically the whole thing, including a paragraph. Once again, very similar. The terminologies are different, but if you have worked into UX, which you all have, you know what it's supposed to do. You just need to find what the same thing is called in terms of personal branding and turn that commonality. If there's a term that you sounds unfamiliar, look into what the term is, where it originates, and very often you'll find something very comparable to what you're doing. The glyphs, these are extra documentation. Patterns, once again, patterns patterns are not that common in UI UX, but basically you have sub elements that are used to fill up extra background in UI UX. In this particular case, the brand element we went with was patterns because they pretty much are useful, to be honest. I'll come to another example, which is e-commerce brand.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I have a question before we
Yes.
move forward, and it has to do as like in the last again 3 weeks we've been talking a lot about like who we are, our strengths, um, who like yes our goal, not our goal, like who is our persona, who is going to be seeing our portfolio, and how do we appeal to all of those, but at the same time how do we tell people who we are? Yes, so I have a question about like what you just showed. I love it. I would love that my branding looks that nice when I finish, but I don't think that I will have time. And like you were mentioning, we don't need all of this when we are building our own branding. So, what will be the minimum components or that we will need to create or to have a brand for our own that we can put in our portfolios?
Yes, the bare minimum is avatar. The avatar in case of brand is usually a logo, but if you don't want to start with a logo because that is a bit time taken, you can take your face directly as the representative of the avatar, because a personal brand is your brand. So your face is basically the main part of the brand.
Yes.
That's something you can start with. You can replace the overall image of favicon with different variants of your face. Like a favicon will probably not be your entire body. Not a professional shot is usually up to the trunk,
Mhm.
but for favicon for tiny places, just zoom into your face. For example, let's say if you're preparing your social media, the display picture, it's better to have a closer view of your face because it will be seen into at very smaller scales, so your entire body will not be legible. uh, then you need to have a specific set of typefaces. If you are confused about what if you're confused about what combinations to use, you can straight up use one single typeface and different variants of it. For
Mhm.
example, in this coincidentally in this specific brand, there's only one typeface, which is Inter. And this was chosen strategically because this is going to be a SaaS brand, and it's very important to have a typeface that works on all platforms.
Mhm.
So we went with Inter, but a single typeface is also enough. You can start with a single typeface, divide it into different variants like how you have for UIX anyway. Hs. You don't need the whole H1, H2, H2 to up to 6, but at least one for heading, one for subheading, and one for body. Same font is fine, but figure out some styles in terms of font styles, which it can be weight, italics, or bold. Uh, then it can be the size. In this case, this is extra bold and it is capitalized. H2 is bold. So you have different variants of a font. That's something you can play with. Minimum three variant: heading, subheading, and body. In body you can have something to for the highlight it, but that is pretty easy. It can simply be a bolden or italic version of the typeface. That's good enough. The second bare minimum is a color palette.
Mhm.
Once again, the color palette doesn't have to be very complicated. It can be as simple as your favorite color. It's your personal brand. Your favorite color is valid to have a become a big part of your uh, color palette because you represent yourself. So your favorite color is a part of yourself. So in case of personal brand, it's very easy to think about. Just think about a few considerations, which is it legible? When I say
Mhm.
legible, there can be some colors which look very pretty but may not be practical in large applications.
Mhm.
That's something you need to keep in mind. So if your favorite version of the color is not that legible, then you can have it as a part of the brand palette and have a version of it as the primary color so that it's more legible in more areas, in more context. And you can have a brand palette of a single color. When I a single color, I don't mean one single code. For example, this gray is the main color, but it has variants of it for different areas. So you can, for the very easy example is Facebook. It's just blue, but the entire screen is not blue. So you need to play with secondary colors or variants of the color depending on what you need. You don't have to think very hard about it to start. Try out while working on your portfolio and you will get a good idea of what is working, what is not working. Just keep in mind that when you find out what is working, you make it uniform in everywhere. Just keep a
Mhm.
documentation of, okay, this is working and this is working. So take that combination and make it a common part of everything else you're doing. Take something that is working and scale it. You don't have to start with the entire scale. Feel free to experiment, check out what's not working, completely fine. But once you find something, make it a common part of everything. The whole concept, the most important part of branding, the most important pillar is recognizability.
Mhm.
And recognizability comes when you repeat a similar kind of language so that people attach you with that kind of language. By language, I don't mean just the textual language as a whole, the visual language, the design language, uh, the the content language as well, the whole term of language. So that's something you need to find and you need to make it uniform. It's really simple. Don't get worried about, don't think about the whole big picture.
Yes.
that which is something that we we have to do. But when you are working on personal brand, just think about yourself. Just test out. Don't think about the big picture right from the beginning. Just keep it at the back of your head so that once something is working, you slowly move it towards the bigger picture. This is the bare minimum. Yes.
Yes, love it. Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I feel like, yeah, when you go and show us all the elements that you have in your brand, guys, like overwhelming for those who don't do branding for a living.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about the colors. And I know that you mentioned something like, yeah, okay, my favorite color. And if you see my back, know my background, but everything around here is lilac or purple. And let's say that's kind of where my branding is going. That is a little bit of cotton candy, that I love sweets, so it comes from that perspective. But how do I know that? I know that you give us some instructions, but how do I know that the colors match? When I see the color palette that you have here, it's balanced. Yes, like you have your main color and then you have other percentages. How do you do that? How do you balance the colors and make sure that it looks good?
There are ways to do that, but if you are not very confident about the go-to and technical ways, you can just play it out. When I say play it out, maybe create a poster for yourself, and when you are doing that, you will find out which color is working good in which proportion. For example, as you mentioned, your favorite color is probably lilac, which is why it's a huge part of your design language. So lilac is a very light color, and which is not a problem. But if your favorite color is something light, then you need to balance it out with something
Mhm.
dark. When I say something dark, I mean, let's say you are putting some text on your on lilac, so the text cannot be white because then there won't be enough contrast, and without enough contrast there won't be enough legibility. Legibility is important. So what do? Simply make it dark, like black on lilac is fine. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of testing. Just use uh, some basic levels of theory that you can look into, like color theory and all. You don't have to go deep into it. uh, your intuition is actually good enough because it's your brand. You don't have to get it right from the beginning, but
Yes.
you just have to notice what is working and scale it. And
Perfect.
just use a bit of intuition. Like the very simple intuition is a light color will not work with another light color. The light color
Yes.
is fine. Just choose, make sure the secondary color is dark, so counter it. Simple logic like that.
And I feel like, again, when something that for sure for UX designers, and we are putting our portfolio out, and we not making our components or our website accessible, that's something that people and other designers are going to notice right away, that we are not looking at those little details. That is not that little, as accessibility should be one of our pillars as our UX designers. So readability is a good one. Okay, those were my questions. But for anyone that has questions, make sure that you put them down on the comments, and I will leave you, and you can keep going.
Yeah, sure. And funny thing you mentioned about components, the elements. An important element of UI UX are the icons, and the point of icons in UI UX is actually, let me circle back to that in a moment. Let me give you another example. This 1 second is a brand guide, and this is for an e-commerce brand. But what's happening with this brand is that I'm also helping them create the UI UX guide. I'm not designing the UX UI UX, but I'm preparing the guide for them. And this is the brand guide, and this is the UI UX guys. This is currently a work in progress, but you can see how, like at the moment, 70% of it is available here. So I'm bringing this up to once again show you how many areas are there where they play in the same language. How many areas are there which is the exactly same thing but in a different format. Uh,
Oh, I was going to
the
say that I love
additions.
that. I love that you're showing us both sides, because again, as all of us are building our portfolio, and brand is such a big part of it. And can you just go to the brand guide instead?
Yes.
Again, our brand guide, my brand guide will never, I mean, I will say never. For sure, it won't look like this at the end of the year, but then there will be a lot of elements that are going to be used for my portfolio. And in so many cases, we are thinking a website. Yeah. So I'm taking these components from our brand guide and then moving them into the design system and other elements. Yes,
Yes.
this could be again my branding here when I'm talking and when I do live streams or when I'm posting something maybe in LinkedIn. I will try to use my brand colors and kind of keep it all in the same space. Or I'm doing a presentation, maybe I'm doing like a case study walkthrough. For sure, I want all of those elements to start trickling together to me to make like not intentional but is present in everywhere that I go. So I love this comparison of like the brand guide and then how that represents on the design system.
Yes, exactly. And that is also a good way to look at it, which is uh, it's you don't necessarily have to start with an entirely huge brand guide system or design system that you need to follow. What's a good way to keep on expanding on that is you are inevitably be going to be creating a different kind of creatives for yourself. Once you create something, let's say you are creating a poster for the first time, just hypothetically speaking, uh, put the version of the poster that worked into your design system so that next time you're creating another poster you can take inspirations from that, and that by itself will slowly become a unified language of its own, and that's pretty much how branding works. Very often when I'm working with a client for the long term thing, there are always things that come up which have not been part of the brand guide. But once I create it and it works and it fits into the bigger picture, that's something like I need to take care of. I make it part of the brand guide after that. So next time a similar scenario comes up, I know what I did and I can draw it from the past. Uh, it's also very similar with whatever portfolio and whatever personal branding you're working on. There will be elements that you did not think about first, but now that they have come up and you have prepared them, after you have prepared them, throw them inside your design system, and so next time you need to something similar scenario comes up, you're not starting from scratch. You have something that you can reuse, something that you can look up to. That's how it will slowly keep on expanding, and you don't have to be overwhelmed with creating the entire thing right from the beginning. Start small, keep on expanding. It's That's pretty much applicable to everything. Actually, I'm just giving examples from the branding side.
Love it. Yes. Yeah, so continue, you can continue with your um maybe I was just going to like maybe this you continue and i I will ask you something later.
Yeah, sure. Just pitch in whenever you have any doubt. Uh, Doubt is not the right term. Any question. Another example is, for example, stationaries are usually an important part of a brand. They're not necessarily important for a personal brand. For a corporate brand, they are pretty important because they are an extension of their brand identity. And for example, business cards are an important part of stationery. So you can see how the color palette and the typography is working here. Similarly, in case of UI UX guide, a common part is a nav bar for an e-commerce. You can see similarly, uh, the same colors, the same typography is also working here. Different application, but similar concept. Just think about, in your case, think about the opposite way. This is how your portfolio or the site that you're developing is. Now, if needed, how do you translate this into some other extension of your brand? Maybe a poster, maybe you can also make business cards for yourself. That's completely fine. It can help you out in physical meetings. Not necessary, but a good touch.
Yeah, love it. I have a question, and I feel like this
Yes.
goes right away here from Vivek. So, what role does psychology plays in crafting personal brand that truly resonate with the audience? I love this. Thank you, Vivek.
That is a good question. It plays out in two ways. Firstly, it comes down to who your target audience is. In case of a personal brand, there are three kind of target audience. Don't count the number so hard, it might change. Firstly, it's whoever you're talking to. It can be a prospect client or a hiring manager, depending on which role you prefer, in-house or independent. So that is the user persona which comes in. The user persona is based on psychology. So everything is actually ultimately connected. It's what matters is how they are connected. In this case, this is one of your persona. Once again, based on psychology. Once again, all the UI UX metrics such as need, want, user flow, the same psychology is also applicable here. The second persona is something that can be your extended target audience. When I say extended target audience, it might be the community you like to work with, maybe your fellow designers that you want to connect with through your portfolio, which is something that always happens. Like, no matter who is hiring you, you do connect with other people who is working in the same field, in our case designers. This is the second kind of persona that can work. And the third kind of persona would be some kind of career progress or networking opportunities. What I mean by that is, let's say you take interest in speaking. So the event organizers, whoever is organizing the public speaking thing, don't think in the same way a client or a hiring manager thinks. There are commonalities, but the way they think, the way they're looking for it is a bit different. So that can be another persona that you need to think of. By the way, public speaking is not compulsory. Uh, it can be something else. It can be photography. It can be some kind of passion that you have. But in every case, there is some person who you need to talk to. Just like in case of UI UX, there is some person who will be using the application. So you need to think about how they think so that you can make the perfect application for them. Similarly, you need to think about the person you are targeting, how they think, so that you can modify your persona or the portfolio with that targeting, so that you know what they are thinking, they are searching for is there in the portfolio. The other persona is you yourself. You don't have to change who you are to attract your target audience. You are not a faceless corporation. You are a person, so you don't have to lose that. You yourself is also a person, and you need to like your portfolio as well. You need to, while you are thinking about others who will be going through your portfolio, you also need to like it. You need to take pride in your portfolio, so that the thing is, uh, think about how salesmen work. A salesman who takes pride in the product he's selling will be a much better at selling the product compared to a salesman who does not care about the product and just wants the commission. Uh, you, I understand we designers are not very comfortable with that kind of comparison, but that's a way you can think about it. So you need to like your portfolio, so your persona yourself is also matters. So this is the primary the way the psychology comes in. The other side also plays, which is the accessibility factor. Accessibility is not directly linked to psychology, but thinking about accessibility and the needs of the people going through a portfolio does play into the psyche. And yeah, like I said, everything is connected, so that's how the psychology plays it. And the other part is also how you express yourself through the portfolio, not just your work but who you are. Because if your portfolio gives a good understanding of who you are as a person, it will attract the kind of people who would like to work with that person. And it's also the reverse is also in play, because if you attract the wrong kind of people to your portfolio, you might not enjoy working with them. And you won't be able to give your full potential if you're working with people you don't enjoy working with. Don't get overwhelmed by this thought. I know, like, when you think about everything at once, it might get a bit confusing. Just keep in mind that what you're doing needs to be needs to be needs to be understandable by the people who are looking at it, needs to be liked by you and the people who will be interacting with it, uh, and it should give a sense of who you are. This is oversimplification. This is not oversimplification. This is really, it is really that simple. It's the details where it gets a bit complicated, but you don't have to go into details right from the beginning. You can iterate on that.
I wanted to pick your brain around what Vivek was asking, and I wanted to show you, and I show everybody without like what I'm hoping to do here is that sensation of like the psychology behind colors. I mean, I feel like maybe this is too much to ask for you out of the blue, but yesterday I was kind of working in a palette for my portfolio, and I wanted to show it to you and see how can we improve what I have done so far. I mean, I have a lot of stuff, so bear with me.
Okay.
So one of the things that I did is, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So one thing that I did is I go and collect photos of things that I like and colors that I like. And
Ah,
then
nice.
I start grabbing colors from the picture and I start combining them together. And I think this is where my question was coming about, like, how do you make a palette look balanced and proportional? Yes. So I mean, maybe you should decide for me, like which colors should I do and what should I go for. I think at the beginning, and as you see, I have a lot of like cotton candy feelings, but that was more about my beginning as a UX designer. And now that I'm moving into, let's say, like more senior roles, and I wanted to appeal to more like management level, like should my palette should change to something more mature. And I think this is something that we have talked to Vivek for a while about, the professionalism and how should I appeal and how that brand should represent myself. I feel like I'm going through this one. I feel like this one with the red and the blue stairs is kind of my favorite so far. It's not as colorful as the other ones. I don't know even what I'm even asking you here, but how do I make my color palette a little more balanced? And yes, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's completely fine. I'll just before I actually answer that, I'll point out a interesting story, which is, you know, being professional and looking professional is not a very straightforward thing. Uh, for example, like the way you're using the term cotton candy. So cotton candy is a bit of has a bit of cutesy feeling towards it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's completely you don't have to lose out looking cutesy to be professional. Like there's a it's very they can play together pretty well. Now of course there's a bit of different elements that come in to add to it, but you don't have to lose out being looking cute to look professional. So
Yes, definitely. I
yeah, so
do definitely believe in this, and I feel like this is what the tech world have given to me, is allowing me to be more me than anything because of the work that we do. So I love that, but I feel like for me, let's say like I'm moving into more like a mature cotton candy. I don't know what is the, maybe again like a cocktail. It's like I'm a mature cotton candy. But yeah, mostly I think I wanted to share with people too the process that I've been doing for from the design for the portfolio power up, and how the branding from everything that I have learned from people so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in terms of if I look by the photography styles and the go-to understanding of looking professional, the middle two pictures works the best.
Yeah.
They have the signature professional photography style. So
Mhm.
as a go-to system, that would be it. But then again, that would not stand out as much. What I feel is that if I go by the way the screen is designed, I'll say the colors itself are fine. What you can look into is try bringing in some secondary and tertiary colors which are a bit towards the darker side of the palette, which work together. Now, the darker side is the important part so that you can work on the contrast a bit more. That is something that is important. But there are different ways to bring in those colors. Now, they can be monochromatic. Monochromatic basically to look having the same color but different shades or hues of it. That's one way to do it. That is completely fine. I personally like monochromatic color palettes. They can be the opposite of it, like they can be opposite sides of the color wheel. For example, I think if light violet, which is towards the lilac color, is
Mhm.
the your primary color, then you can look into secondary colors into dark green. I'm saying dark green because dark is important as an opposite of the light, and green is the opposite color of violet in
Mm.
terms of the color spectrum. That's one way to do it. Then there is also, I'm forgetting the terms. There is other way which is choosing colors which is close to it. Like a monochromatic would be light purple with dark purple, but maybe not, instead of having dark purple, you are looking to dark red or dark blue. So it's not the same color, so it is not monochromatic, but it is close to that. That also has a technical term which I keep forgetting. That is also something I like. Then there is another way which is a triangular pattern.
Mhm.
That shapes comes into color wheel, by the way. The shapes by itself are not important, but if you look into color wheel and you are playing with it, then you will understand where the shapes are coming from, and it's a good way to experiment, and shapes are easier to remember, so they are kind of useful, not necessary but useful. The other way is a square format, when you have two light colors which are close to each other and two dark colors which are close to each other. They don't have to be light and dark per se, but since your primary favorite color is light, you need to look into the darker
Yeah.
palettes a bit. That would be the suggestion. I personally like, I have two favorite colors. One is blue and other is gray. So I kind of play with them in my personal branding. I'll give a glimpse as well. And so to make them play, I make sure the gray is a bit darker than the blue so that there is legibility when I'm making them work together. But yeah, I'm not exactly, I'm not sacrificing on my favorite colors for that. I'm just finding a way to make them work. That's what
Yeah.
matters. Maintain your personality, but maintain it in a way that is accessible, and people people find it a good match. It's the matchmaking that matters.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe. Okay, sorry. Vivek has another question, but I would love to
Okay.
go to your Brandon. How do you see the future of UI and UX design influencing personal branding, especially with the emerging trends like AI and personalization?
That is a good question. So the thing with AI is, firstly, I think this is something that a lot of people keep repeating, including myself, which is AI is a tool. So it's not something that a tool cannot replace the person who is using the tool. So it just changes how you use it. It might changes a few process of how you are handling design. It might make some roles a little less important, but it's not going to replace you. That's firstly something that you need to keep in mind. Like, it's not something that you need to worry about. What it can end up doing is it might add up a few tools that you need to learn, but those learning curves are pretty easy, as I have noticed. In most cases, it will be an addition of a tool that you're already using. For example, Figma is a very popular go-to tool for UI UX designers. I like Figma as well. I hear takes on that. So Figma now has AI. So you're not moving away from Figma to use AI. You are just using the AI implementation within it. So it's, in most cases, it is something the tool companies will take care of it by themselves, because they also want to make it accessible so that more people use them. So it's something that it's fortunately not our headache. The other thing is, one thing that AI will play a huge role in terms of UI UX, besides the whole speed up and efficiency thing, is personalization. But that, once again, it's not something that you need to handle directly. What it will do is, let's say you have four different variants of a user flow. What AI will do is, AI will figure out which user flow works better on which user based on their usage history. It is also something that algorithms are already doing, but AI will kind of amp up on that, make it more efficient, make it a lot more scalable. But it will not make lead you to making new screens as a whole. You will be making the screens itself, the variations of the screen, the different variants of different segments of the screen. What AI will do is, AI will pick up which part of what to present to which user. So it will be something that will happen in the back end of the thing. You don't have to handle it directly, but what will be helpful is if you understand how it works. For example, I'll explain it with a different example. Like, I'm not a coder, at least not anymore. But I have a engineering degree, so there was a period when I used to code. So what it helps out with for me is that when I'm working with UI UX projects, which has a handoff, or even when I'm working on a branding project which is for a tech company. So there also, I know that there will be developers who will be taking off from here. It Since I understand how the process works, maybe I won't be able to create a platform. Like, not maybe, I know I won't be able to code out the entire problem, the platform. But since I understand how it works, it helps me. It gives me a shared language with the handoff during the handoff, so I understand what the developer might be looking for. What is something the developer will need? What is something the developer will use more frequently? What is something that will help out the developer make it figure out things a little easier. So understanding how things works will help you design better. You don't have to learn to do it, but the knowledge, the broad spectrum knowledge of how things work, how the thing you are designing will be used, how the thing you are designing will be then developed, how the thing you are designing will be then printed. Having that understanding is very valuable in the long term. It's completely fine that if you don't know right now. Like, there is a tons of printing techniques that I learned slowly over the time as I created some design, which use the printing technique that I hasn't designed for before. But that's a kind of knowledge that keeps on accumulating. But always be curious about that side of knowledge, because it, it's not something that will pay you off immediately, but it will pay you off tremendously in the long term. It will be a very important part of your career progression as you become from a junior to a senior to a managerial position, because we'll be not just designing, we'll be working with a lot of people outside the design, your design team or the design field as a whole. And it's also applicable for UI UX. Uh, you don't need to work with, you actually you will be working with AI, and you, to a lot of extent, you already work with AI. For example, we use for the whole, how there are tools that removes the background from an image. That is AI. So it's all those minute parts of our daily life where AI is already integrated. So it's not something completely new. Just understand how it will come in picture. Keep yourself educated, and that will help you out with designing better. Just understanding the platform you're designing for will help you design better. That's the simplified version of it. Yeah, that would be it.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like it's all about how do you are you using them there now? Are you helping you to your process? Because it's going to make things faster, but it's like be curious, keep learning. I know sometimes it's hard to catch up with everything that keeps coming up and improvements, but I think it's just to be aware and make the best use of it at the end of the day. Let's go to your brand. Let's
Yeah.
see how do you got here and how does represent you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Firstly, full disclosure, this is like my 2023 version of my document portfolio. I am currently in the stage of recreating it because a lot has happened after this, so there will be a lot of missing things. But yeah, firstly, as I said, like for your personal brand, it's you can simply go with your favorite colors. Just make sure that it is compatible and it has the accessibility and few cross check factors that you need to keep on, but completely fine to start with your favorite colors. uh, Luckily for me, they kind of work out even with all those considerations. As I said, my favorite color is blue and gray, so they kind of work together. I just i i genuinely like a darker version of the gray, which counteracts with the lighter version of the blue that I like, so kind of lucky with that. If that did not work out, maybe I had to play with the contrast a bit, which is completely fine. And the other thing about my like my personality is that I am a bit, I'm not a bit outgoing per se, like I am introverted, but I am a bit adventurous as well. Like I'm a bit of a straight shooter kind of guy. I don't sugarcoat stuff. I don't feel afraid of saying that. So in a way, I outside the introversion spectrum, I'm a bit bold with the things I do. So, which is now to represent that into my personal branding. What I do is I use a very bold typography as the headlines. So this headline is has a very high difference in compared to the body size. It's what I think it's a 80 or something. Yeah, it is at 104 font size while the body is at just 20. So that high contrast gives that bold look. But I'm not. I'm also keeping in mind the other thing I said, like express your personality, but think about a few accessibility and cross-check factors. Like I cannot make everything bold. That will be very difficult to read. And so the body is not bold. The body is uh, understandable, easily readable, sensitive typeface. The other thing is maintaining a overall style that I use. So this is a typeface that I designed, like I custom designed because I wanted something that was uniquely me. You don't have to do that. No other typeface here is custom designed. It's only this one. Then having some commonality that you can play on this kind of typography is something that I like doing just for myself. So this is something that I have worked on other parts of the portfolio as well for all the poll spaces, some custom personal posters that I made. Now, since these are posters that I made for myself and I care about, I put them up upfront in the document portfolio because they are part of who I am before going through the client projects that I did, which are this, like the client projects, projects that you are doing for someone else are for them, and that distinction will be there, and that is fine. But this is this is your portfolio. Just make sure that they work together. Like just make sure that they are not fighting with each other, like they're not enemies. It's you showing how you work for someone else, so it's like a collaboration, not a fight. uh, that's something you need to keep out. Now these are like basic things. Our portfolio has like experience, some certifications you did. Come, one thing, yeah, there's one important part when it comes to portfolio that can help you attract hiring managers, which is having some metrics that can be tracked. When I say metrics, the metrics are project specific, but metrics that matter. For example, I there are a few clients which I help them get funding. So the funding part is important. Like for you, the funding might not be important, but someone who is hiring you, for them it will be important that okay, his work help someone get funding. We can sell that to our clients, or we can use that for ourselves. And that's where once again the psychology and the user persona comes in. What does people you are trying to talk with care about? Express that without losing yourself. One thing I like to include in portfolios, and I suggest everyone to do, is talk about some passion projects that you did. Uh, the reason is twofold. Firstly, it will very often there might be projects that you worked on but you're not necessarily proud of because you worked with someone or under someone and they had the decision making power, so you could not do something you wanted to do. But uh, but what about, but in case of passion projects or personal projects, you don't have the limitation. You can show what you can do, what you want to do, what you like to do in your full potential. So that has a no cap barrier on how much of your skill and decision making power you can show. That is one advantage of having a personal project, showing yourself at your full potential. The other thing is, uh, personal projects are also a good way to show about your personality, about who you are as a person. Like, I take interest in filmmaking. Like, I'm not in a label where I'm trying to enter filmmaking professionally, but I take interest in it. So I have some short films that I worked on as personal project. Not trying to make any money out of them, but the fact that I made them, that I completed them, and I have a visual language attached to them, those are factors that can be converted into good talking points when with your prospect, client, or hiring manager. People like to work with people who they know care about what they're doing, because that is a good indicating factor of their growing curve. And any company or client hiring someone would care about what they would do 2 years from now, because they want to capitalize on that. So understanding that the person they are talking to has a growth potential, has something they are passionate about, kind of plays into that psyche. Once again, understanding the people you're talking to, the user person. Just like you think about the user flow and user persona who will be using the application or platform you are designing. Similar concept, just different forms of expression. And there is no right or wrong in terms of passion projects. It can be anything. You just need to point it out in a way that that makes that gives the appeal for the people you're targeting. Like, I can say that I shot 100 photos. That might not be appealing, but if I say that I documented something, that might be appealing, because a brand is trying to document themselves and show it to their clients. So just think about what you do and how a part of it can be beneficial for someone else. In case of your client projects, in case of projects that you have done professionally, the metrics matter. What you did matter. How it benefited the project matters. In case of passion projects, the metrics are not important, but what part of passion project, what quality that you use to create the project, that can be beneficial for the prospect, hiring manager, or client. That's something you need to highlight a bit. What that is completely depends on what you did, what your passion is, who you're talking to. But think about what that part is and try to highlight that.
So I wanted to ask you, so when you are applying for a job, or I mean, I feel you are you sending these as a PDF? I mean, it's interesting, mostly because I feel like us as a UX designers, we have our website and that's what we send. But I see this is more like a more tangible. What do you do? And I feel like this is like more branding. It feels like it's more tangible. Is a PDF? Is this a presentation? How do you share these with possible companies?
Yes, this is a PDF, and usually I share this across as an attachment. And
Mm,
there have been few cases where I got to present it,
okay.
but usually it's an attachment. And the reason, now currently I'm working on my personal portfolio site. That's something
Mm,
that is in the work. The I didn't have a personal portfolio site till now, because I mostly work under a brand name. So I have
I see.
a brand site So I did not feel the need of creating a personal
Mhm.
portfolio site separately. Instead, I created a document. But this time, I'm creating a personal portfolio site as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something in progress.
I see. It's a lot of work. I mean, this is what we do in here, but I love this.
Yes.
And I feel like for me, what you're showing is something that I talk quite a bit. That is like a portfolio deck
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is a
It's
little more
similar to a portfolio
targeted.
deck, correct?
Yeah, it's a little more targeted to a job or a company that you're applying versus like a side. A side is like a little more like a macro vision of you and a little bit of everything instead of something as targeted as like a portfolio deck could be. So I love that you're presenting this because even though a UX portfolio deck won't have the same elements, but it
Yeah,
kind of has
correct.
the same intention that is targeting a specific role instead of something more macro. But yeah, I love this. Thank you. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
asking people if they have any more questions. I don't see any, but we are almost at time. So if you want to close up, that would be great.
Yes, I think there's one other thing that I feel is valuable for a portfolio. Uh, it's uh, it's a bit connected. Like it's your portfolio should give an idea of what you care about. Now, the passion project itself are a good way to highlight that. The other thing is straight up mentioning what you care about. It really can help connect. I'll tell you how. Uh, I care about sustainability, for example. Now, sustainability is firstly, it's a good thing to care about, I feel, but
Mhm.
secondly, it's also a industry that is currently growing. So, let's say you want to work in the sustainability space, and you are applying in some sustainability based company, and they notice that it's something
Mhm.
that is a part of your portfolio, and you have something that backs it up, then that can help you form a secondary connection beyond your skills uh, and your experience. And that secondary connection might seem like it sounds like it's secondary, it's not a primary thing. Like, people will not hire you just because you care about sustainability. You need to have the skills to back it up. But if there are 100 people applying for something, and one of them cares about something that the company cares about, then that makes an instant element that can help you stand out from others outside just the skill factor. uh, if there are few people who all have 2 years of experience, but you have something that is in tune with the values of the company, then you stand out from the other people who have a similar skill set and a similar experience level. And this, once again, as I said, like, your personal portfolio, personal branding is trying to do two primary things: express yourself as who you are, and help you connect, like, match with the right people you are trying to work with. Everything else is helping you walk towards that. Like, the recognize being recognizable is a part of it, but the goal is to express who you are and what you can do for someone you are trying to work with. And yeah, that's like a simplification, and that's like the core goal of a personal portfolio, personal branding, the whole concept of a brand.
I love that. No, and I feel like if I go to a company and I'm showing that one of my passions and things that I volunteer and I care about are sustainability, and they say we don't care about sustainability. So it's such a hard word to say, sustainability. And they say we do the whole opposite. Would you like to work for a company like this? And I think this is when we start seeing how our values and the things that we care really are part of all the decisions that we do in life. Yes, since from a point as that you're saying is not the main point of our portfolios to show the things that we care, but showing them really show that we care and we want to be a part of companies or projects that they care too.
Yeah, and that is a good question. That actually is a good question, because this is something a lot of people think about and kind of get a bit scared about while thinking about putting out what they care about. But here's the thing: uh, if you point out what you care about, what matters to you, it will not just attract other people who also care about the similar things. It will also give a signal to people who do not care about similar things to maybe not try to work together. And you might think that, okay, if it tells someone that I'm not a right fit for them and they don't want to work with me, isn't that isn't it me losing out the work? But here's the thing: you're not losing out a work that you did not have. A person, a company that is in a stark conflict with who you are as a person, it's not a company that you will enjoy working with or enjoy working for. And if you work somewhere or with someone you don't enjoy working, you won't be able to utilize your potential. You won't be able to grow much. It might only be like somehow doing the bare minimum, getting a paycheck, and just surviving. That's not how you want to live. You want to grow together. You want to progress in your career, and an important part of it is working with the right people. And to work with the right people, you need to connect at the same level, in the same mentality, in the same philosophy that they work with, and putting out who you are, putting out what you care about, putting out what you don't like, helps you out. Yes, you will, a lot of people will probably won't work with, like somehow a lot of people get don't like the idea of sustainability, and they will not work with you. But you would not enjoy working with them anyway.
Mhm. That's, I feel like that's such a big point. And again, I always mention something around this is like, is a privilege at the same time to be able to say, hey, yes, you don't care about this, so I don't work with you. In some cases, we have to say, okay, what is my priority now? Is finding a job and they want to hire me, even if they don't have the same values. And it's for you to understand that if that's the case in your life, is that okay too? But yeah, it's a privilege to say, at one point, let's don't work with that company or that organization because they don't care about the same as me. Thank you so much. I love this. Sorry that I brought you into what I've been working on so you can give me your feedback. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. That's completely fine. It was fun. Like, I did get to answer a few cool questions. And yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And don't forget, this Saturday, we have another session at 8 a.m. PST. Make sure that you go to my LinkedIn so you can join us. Everybody, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye bye.